Gentlemen, please be seated. We are about to begin our session on Travels in a Dervish Cloak by Isambard Wilkinson, and our moderator is Victoria Schofield. Please put your phones on silent mode, and we will have a question answer session after the session ends, so please be quiet during the session. Okay. Victoria Schofield is a writer and commentator who has written extensively on South Asia. She is an acknowledgement expert on the Kashmir issue and is the author of Kashmir in the Crossfires. Victoria is an associate of the Pakistan Security Research Unit, University of Durham, and a visiting lecturer at King's College, London. She is a frequent commentator on BBC and other news outlets and has travelled widely in the region.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you all hear me at the back? Microphone working? Well, it's a great thrill to be here for Karachi Literature Festival number 9, as I came to number 1 and have been to many in between, so I'm delighted to feel I'm back home. Thank you all, and thank you. Thank you very much for staying, because for those of you who were listening to Zia Mohyeddin read Shakespeare, this is a hard act to follow. But I'm really delighted to be here with that Isambard bard, as we know you, Wilkinson, who our paths have crossed a number of times, including in London. And he's written a fantastic book, Travels in a Dervish Cloak. I think I'm going to have to start with my first question as to why is it Travels in a Dervish Cloak?
Good question. Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be back in Pakistan. And thank you for coming at lunchtime. Mujhe bhuk lagi hai, kuch khana ko hai. That was Urdu, by the way, I think. So actually the title, which a lot of people have said is slightly bizarre or a bit too Orientalist, comes from a line in a tract written by Data Saab of Lahore, in which he says that all of the universe is contained within a dervish's cloak. And I rather like to take my travels through Pakistan as a sort of travel through this patched cloak. Its rivers, its seams, its folds, its mountains, trying to work out this kind of jigsaw puzzle, and often getting lost in the folds of that cloak. So yeah, that's
it's a good. It's certainly an attractive title. But let's get back to the beginning. You didn't come to Pakistan until the early 2000s, but as you write in the beginning... Hello? What's happened to the mic? Is this better? Can we hear now? Oh, that's better. Okay, right. As long as I don't pop. Bard, you came as a journalist to Pakistan in the early 2000s, but that's not where your knowledge and love of Pakistan began. It began a long time before, in your childhood. And I think one of the lines I like particularly is that you said you developed a nostalgia for a place you'd never visited. So let's go to, how did that nostalgia begin?
Well, I blame everything on my grandmother, particularly as she's no longer here to punch me. She was born in India. She was what was called an Anglo-Indian, or going further back, a Eurasian. And she very much brought India, the subcontinent, into our childhoods. She would sing us nursery rhymes in Hindi and Urdu. Whenever she ate, her plate was piled high with chutney and chili. And even although she left India at the time of partition because she married a British cavalry officer, my grandfather, she really brought that life with her. And she kept up her links with this part of the world in particular through her friendship with a Pakistani from Lahore. And their 50-year friendship really also coloured my childhood, because we would hear all these tales about Pakistani marriages, political vendettas, tamashas, feuds, dramas. And by the time I was 18, when I first came here, I already had a kind of notion or an idea of what Pakistan would be about.
And you came for a Pakistani wedding, which is pretty unbeatable.
Yes, it was. It was, well, extraordinary. I mean, we watched the build-up to the ceremonies, the tailors stitching the suits of clothes, jewelers threading pearls and diamonds. And, you know, if I did have any remaining notion that, a sort of Western notion that Pakistan would be a sort of dour Islamic republic, they were completely blown away, particularly by the hashish cakes that we were served as well.
Oh, right. Well, coming as a journalist in the 2000s, you were treading in the footsteps of a number of other noted journalists who've come to work in Pakistan as a job. As you say, it was an appropriate time to come. Pakistan was news. It was a good story. But like others, you developed an affinity and a love of Pakistan beyond just it being a job. But it was a very serious job at the time because a lot was going on in Pakistan. And so could we talk a little bit about the news side, Pakistani's news, and why you, as a journalist, felt you were working in Spain at the time, it was important to get to Pakistan, and how, as a journalist, what you then found?
Yes, so it was the 2000, my stint here was 2005 to 2009, so part of the Musharraf era. And of course, Pakistan was under huge pressure then from the US, still is, to do more in the war on terror. And of course, that pressure really began to change Pakistan, because then we saw the rise of the Pakistani Taliban, and there was sort of that blowback into Pakistan. I think things started changing. I mean, I didn't actually know that at the time. I just thought Pakistan's in the news. And my editor said to me, "Don't you know something about Pakistan?" I said, "A little bit." But I thought it was, it was a very important time to be here. And as it turned out, it was more important than I thought, because as time went on, and I was part of the problem in the sense that I was writing articles that focused on the war on terror, I thought this is a very narrow gauge, and we're feeding this kind of black legend about Pakistan being, the hub of terrorism, the frontline war on terror. And of course, I remembered Pakistan from my youth here, my teenage years and my late and my 20s, and I wanted to correct that what I thought was an imbalance.
Well, that brings us. I mean, I wanted to deal more with the hard news side, okay, because obviously it's challenging, because dealing with issues such as terrorism, it's not easy as a reporter to report. How difficult did you find it as a reporter to do factual news, or did you find you got swept up with a sort of myth and rumor that sometimes is the problem of reporting hard news?
Of course, as a brilliant correspondent, I was never swept up with... No, I mean, it was actually... Pakistan is... I think Owen Bennett-Jones, the BBC chap, who I know, a lot of you know, he said that it's actually a relatively easy place to operate as a journalist, up to a point. There are red lines you can't cross, for example, Baluchistan, the tribal areas, Kashmir. So up to a point it was easy, but then when we're talking about that the whole epicenter of that story was the tribal areas, which was effectively in Purda, it was very difficult to work out, who was pulling which string. Was the government in charge? Was the military in charge? Was the military running the jihadis? Was that kind of myth? It's very difficult to get your hands on solid facts. And of course, as anyone who lived through that period, which we all did, there was at times an element of fear and concern, and it felt like the country was tumbling. Hence many titles of books like Descent into Chaos and, the front line of the war on terror.
Pakistan failed state and all of that. But your ambition, I mean, very soon on, was to find the real Pakistan. And that, I think, is actually part of the fun aspect of the book, is that you wake up one day and look at the map and decide with your brother Chev, who, with great respect, does seem to be quite a charismatic individual as well. He's a photographer. Yes, and that you just look and you're going to go somewhere with a particular interest to find this real Pakistan and its Sufist traditions. Yes. And I think for all you who haven't yet bought the book, it's a really fun part because it's more light-hearted in terms of what is the real Pakistan. It's not just the politics, it's not just what goes on in Islamabad, it's what is going on in rural Pakistan. And I have to congratulate you, Bard, on getting to some places that I've not been, that you do feel this is the real Pakistan. So can we have a little bit of discussion about the real Pakistan?
Yes, so it sort of leads on from what I'd seen when I was young here, which was, as an outsider, I was really surprised about how Pakistan was so layered, so textured. It was like a palimpsest of sort of, there was all sorts of hybridizations and syncretisms and flowing together of religions, Sikhism, Christianity, Islam, going back over millennia to, through Zoroastrianism to shamanism. And I saw that there were still remnants of that culture here, and I wanted to find out a route, and that route led through Sufi shrines, which I thought was the best prism with which to view the the traditions of tolerance and plurality in this country.
Well, I think it's, again, I think for us foreigners, and as I say, every foreigner I've met, before they come to Pakistan, they say, oh, Pakistan, and then as soon as they've come to Pakistan, they all fall in love with Pakistan, and I think we all class ourselves among those categories. But it is such a lesson, it's a tapestry that is rich with the culture. And sometimes, we've got the sport, we've got the cricket, which we can never avoid and which we love, but sometimes to get beyond that, it's extremely interesting and educational. What is also appealing about the book is how you paint a portrait of the life of a journalist, which is not just swanning in and staying in a five-star hotel and writing a story. You're actually, of course, living here, and so you have to get to grips with daily life, which is having a cook or a servant or a driver, and the interaction that you have to deal with their various aspects of their lives, what's important to them and their sicknesses and their health. And then, of course, we get the summer season. And I'd like to ask you to read this passage in the summer season, which is, because I think it captures very well for a foreigner what suddenly it takes over. I mean, we're here now in sort of a nice, what might be the English summer. You've got your book. It's from 137, right, and then over the page to the end. Yeah. Okay. Because it's beautifully written and it's lovely prose as well. So let's hear about the summer season.
The summer was not without pleasure. Nothing quite defines the season, Mosami Gamor, or hot season, like a mango. The intense heat does wonders for the mango tree. The fruit ripens in its skin, plumping out to fat, green, paisley shapes. The first crop is taken off at this unripe stage, while still called umbi. Chutneys and juleps are made from the umbi. Sorry, I've lost my place. Hang on. And the umbi is cut. Dried on rooftops and steeped in mustard seed oil for achar to last for the year. Mango bugs, chalk white, appear everywhere, leaving entire driveways and gardens stained with yellow paste wherever they are crushed. Soon the last umbis turn to a mango in all its glory. Truckloads arrived from southern Punjab and Sindh. In the countryside, mango festivals were held. Landowners dispatched mangoes in wooden crates stuffed with straw to friends and family. I usually received a crate from a relation of the Begum, Aladita, who was one of my servants, and Basil, my cook, gave me 1 or 2 out of 30 and ate the race themselves. For days they lounged about in a sticky stupor. We frequently had to top up our water tank. Mafias ruled in these urban areas and charged exorbitant amounts for a tanker full of brackish liquid. People secretly installed pumps on water mains to siphon off enough for their use. Kinder people in affluent neighborhoods left earthenware pots outside their gates for poor passers-by to drink from. As a result of the heat, my garden had dried up, and crows and minas could be seen fighting in angry hops around shrinking puddles after the gardener had watered the plants. Smells abounded. Watermelon vendors injected fruit to make it heavier, and dysentery, malaria, hepatitis, and typhoid spread through the slums at alarming rates. The dry spell invites anderis, stupendous thunderstorms with veins of lightning, and powerful winds that carry tons of dust and fell trees. We were caught in such a storm in the car one day, and, as if in a cartoon, 100 yards of wall and trees collapsed behind us as we sped away. Aladita was delighted to see my open-eyed fear. Koi baat nahi, don't worry. He said, Mosam change. It's just a change in the season. Thank you.
Thank you, Bar. That's a great passage, and I think for all of us who love mangoes, we like to get into a sticky stupor. I'll remember that. I'll excuse myself when I get in a sticky stupor for mangoes. Well, of course, there are bound to be disappointments, and so I'm going to ask you that penetratingly difficult question. What was your biggest disappointment in your years of working in Pakistan?
I think they came mainly at the end. We haven't mentioned that part of this book is, part of my sort of journey, if you like, is that I had a kidney failure and had to have to go on a dialysis and have a transplant. And as I was coming to the end of my time in Pakistan, I was feeling progressively unwell. And with sickness becomes a sort of growing agitation about the world around you. And I think I began to share some of Pakistanis' own disappointments about their own country. You know, the poverty that we see around us, the kind of lack of government capacity to deal with it. And also I found very depressing this sort of static relationship with India, you know, with all the shared history. Of course it's idealistic, but I became very frustrated by that dialogue, which seemed so blocked.
Yes, I think we all share that. I mean, you talked about the static relationship with India in terms of the peace process. You managed to travel to Kashmir.
Yes, yeah.
Because this is not mentioned in your book, I think, editing. So I'm just going to ask you a little bit about Kashmir.
No, yeah, unfortunately, I did have to cut a section just because of the narrative arc. It would have become too stodgy, but it is a shame because obviously the Kashmir issue colours the whole of the region's politics. So yes, in the aftermath of that terrible earthquake in 2005, the army let journalists in, and I was surprised at the artificiality of the life that those people in Azad Kashmir were forced to put up with. They didn't really have true political representation, their wishes weren't properly represented, and they were cut off often from their families and clans across the line of control. And I sensed that they didn't, you know, that they were shouting into a well, their voices weren't heard. Pakistan had taken their cause, but it hadn't really understood them. I think they were as angry with the Pakistani government as they were the Indian government. But yeah, and on my second visit, just to illustrate what a closed-off area it is, I was sort of booted out by some intelligence agents.
Not such a good story. Well, we have to watch this space, of course, obviously, with Jammu and Kashmir. What surprised you most about your time in Pakistan? Were there sort of revelations, things you assumed you knew, but in fact found you didn't know? Or?
Well, yes, very much. I mean, I'm still feel slightly embarrassed talking to Pakistanis about Pakistan, because what do I know? But yeah, I mean, if I can mix surprise with pleasure, one of the things that stands out in my mind was attending the Urs of Lal Shahbaz Qalanda. And even though I had read about what that represents, actually seeing it in the flesh and being part of that mass was so surprising and uplifting. The sort of the camaraderie between Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, and me as an outsider, and the veneration and the emotional warmth there was pleasingly surprising. Yeah.
Yes, but you had one journalistic disappointment because you did try very hard to see Pir Pagaro.
Yes, is he in the audience? No, for me, Pir Pagara became a sort of his shrine in particular that I wanted to see. I felt that it represented something about rural sin that if I unlocked, I would understand something very integral about this country's hereditary, feudal, saintly politics, and the control that they still have politically.
But in terms of journalism, I mean, it's, you know, as a persistent journalist, it's annoying. Was there a particular sort of reason why you felt you just couldn't unblock it? It's just connections, or?
Well, I just feel that he was always one step ahead of me. There was a travel writer in the 60s called Peter Main,
yes,
who did better than I did. He actually got to his shrine and collared Pir Pagara, only to find that the next morning he'd slipped away on a crocodile shoot.
Yes, it's good. Well, we've got some time for questions. It's really interesting, Bard, and I recommend you. I think there are books for sale at the end of the room and with the author to sign. But do we have some questions here? Because I'd like this to be interactive. Yes, indeed, the gentleman there. The mic, the roving mic. Thank you. I think we probably need the mic. You got the mic? Sorry, everyone, we're just waiting for the mic. I think it's important.
My name is Rashad. Two questions, sir. One is, your name is very interesting. Shed some light on that. Sure. And number two, please explain the different versions of Islam going around over here. We are totally confused.
Different versions of
Islam going around.
That you discovered.
You're asking me, my God. Okay, so
and
my
your
name,
yeah.
So my name is the more interesting. So it's actually Norman French in origin, and my mother, I think, was on magic mushrooms in most of the 60s and the 70s. So my elder brother is called Sachevral, my younger brother is called Augustus, my sister is called Jazina, and we also had some engineers in the family, and Isambard Kingdom Brunel, of course, is a famous Industrial Revolution era engineer. But actually it's quite amusing because Isambard Kingdom Brunel was selected by the British as the greatest Briton of all time. But in fact he was pretty much French.
Yes, he's French. And versions of Islam?
So yes, that question...
Tricky. It was tricky. Second question.
So yes, I mean, if I could narrow it down to the two that I've had to simplify in my book, which I really wanted to be read, particularly in the West, where these misperceptions about Pakistan abound. I talk about conservative Islam, and by conservative Islam, I mean a form of Islam which is, I think, increasing in this country due to Saudi money and the influence of Wahhabism and Salafism, which I feel is threatening literally and physically. For example, the form of Islam, the folkloric Sufic Islam, which we see at the shrines. And that is the second, which is, it's organically developed over hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that is the tradition. And obviously there are lots of different forms of Sufism, but that's the one that most appealed to me because of its traditions of love, tolerance, and unity. And also its search for truth.
I think we in the West, it's true, I mean, it's possibly also the problem with the media. We tend to use one name. We have the black and white, we don't have the grey areas. Do we have another question? Yes, gentleman there and then you. Thank you. Yes, no, you at the back. Yes, thank you.
I am Ali. I want to ask that, is spiritualism is the main cardinal of Islam, or for the survivability of Islam in the future, this aspect should be prevailed or curtailed?
Sorry, the question is actually, what's your question?
About the spiritualism in Islam.
Should spiritualism prevail?
Sure.
Yes. Oh, we're turning into Islamic scholars here.
Good. Where's my beard when I need it? Well, obviously this is going to be a very personal reaction, but to me, spirituality would be the foundation of any religion. I mean, religion, of course, has become politicized and is used generally as a kind of marker to manipulate people, whereas, of course, spirituality should be a personal search for God and your relationship with God. I think isn't that a tenet of Islam? There should be no clergy in Islam. It should be a direct relationship.
Yeah. And this gentleman here?
Hey, Bart.
Hey.
Quick question. So you said that you initially focused upon being that journalist, perpetuating that idea that Pakistan is some sort of a terrorist hub where they just pop out of the ground. This external idea that we have that Pakistan is this terrible, terrible place. You get to see the other side of it by going into rural areas. Essentially what my question is, as an outsider, what makes a Pakistani Pakistani?
What makes
because we're giving you the big
Pakistan?
questions today.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, and that
it's
is
not a quick question.
No, I think that's a brilliant question because Pakistan, in a way, its journey has been a quest for identity. It's been a quest about what unifies us. Should it be Islam? Should it be our geography? Should it be our language? Or should we accept a more pluralistic definition of this country? And I think one of the dangers is that, once you go down the purely Islamic route, then that becomes a straitjacket, and you start purging Pakistan of its wealth, of diversity, and the richness of its culture. And what unifies you all probably is the word desi, but it's, I mean, through all my travels, the thing that I found in common is of course the extreme hospitality. Sometimes I've not known whether I've been kidnapped or whether I'm a guest.
I think we all agree that the hospitality is boundless. I've just been given a very discreet notice. It wasn't walked across the room like with Zia Muhyiddin, that time is up. But if we had one last tiny question, I'm sure we could just sneak it in. But perhaps time is up in order to be able... Oh, there's a gentleman here. Can we just finish this question, and then I think we'll have to close the session. We just wait 1 second for the mic.
Oh, the mic is going the wrong way. Yeah.
Islam is Islam. I think that's a statement we better end on. Thank you very much. I think we've got time now for Bard Wilkinson to sign some books at the end of the room. I'd like to thank you very much indeed. This has been a taster because it's been rather a short session and we have kept to time. But thank you all very much for coming.
Yes,
and thank you
very much for coming. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.